What's up? You're listening to The Long Game, and I'm your host, David Lee Kim, co-founder of Omniscient Digital. In this episode, we chat with Alexa Grabell. Alexa is the co-founder and CEO of Pocus, the first product-led sales platform that turns product data into revenue. They help go-to-market teams use data to improve customer acquisition, conversion, and expansion, all without relying on engineers. In this conversation, we talk about Alexa's journey to founding Pocus and how she and her co-founder validated their product idea before touching any code. We talk about how the Pocus team created the category of product-led sales through their community of design partners, how it differs from product-led growth, and the trends she's currently seeing in the market. Alexa also shares her experience growing as a leader since becoming a founder and the trade-offs that she's had to make to build a successful business. I think you're going to learn a lot. Here's my conversation with Alexa. Alexa, welcome to The Long Game.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thanks for making the time. So we're going to eventually get to the story of Pocus and product-led sales, which I think is the core of our conversation today. But first, I did some research and I learned that you wanted to be a dancer before all of this. You were actually getting paid to perform, and I just have to ask about that. What was that about? Walk us through how you ended up being a tech founder from being a dancer.
Yeah, it's funny. I say that on one podcast, and now I feel like I unleashed a secret that I grew up thinking that I wanted to be a professional dancer. So I mean, it was the sport that I chose in high school and college. Instead of going to like basketball or soccer practice, I was on two different dance teams and performed at various types of events and everything from hip hop, ballet, jazz, tap, and it was a total passion of mine. And there are similarities in ways as I see in maybe a stretch, but as I see advance in my career. But it was a great way to work with a team, really understand kind of how to work with others and be collaborative and travel with the team. And it was definitely my passion and what I dedicated a huge amount of time to growing up.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't talk about this very often, but I also have a dance background. And
oh, wow.
A lot of my friends have gone on to be like backup dancers for like Beyonce. And I'm like, wow, what would have happened if I went down that path? I mean, there's a reason why I didn't, but that would be an interesting like parallel universe to think about. Like, what if I did become a professional dancer? I don't know.
We should go to a dance class.
I would love that, actually. Taking a hip hop class, or my girlfriend and I were taking salsa lessons for a bit. And
that is awesome.
I had to sit her down and be like, we've taken three series of courses. Either we're going to become competitive salsa dancers, or like, just tell me that you just want this to be like chill and having fun, because I'm getting way too serious about this now.
I love it. That is incredible. It is a great outlet. Have fun and let loose. So that is incredible.
Yeah. So walk us through the milestones that led to you going to business school, which I understand is where you met your co-founder and the founding of Pocus. Like, what were the milestones that led up to that?
Yeah, so after from my dance career that never happened, I studied engineering undergrad, and then I went into consulting, which was a great place to start a career and think strategically and learn really tactical things like how to make a slide deck and use Excel. And then got pretty bored of that pretty quickly, wanted to build and operate. I joined a startup called Dataminr, and when I was there, I was leading RevOps. So part of that responsibility was, how do you give data to the sales team or customer success team and make it operationalized in a way that makes their lives easier? And really identified a bunch of pain points with RevOps, Sales Ops, CS Ops, that whole function. It wasn't just Dataminr that was kind of facing that problem, recognized it was every RevOps team. And I went to business school, happy to chat about that decision point, but I was at Stanford where I met my co-founder Isaac, and we spent 3 months just ideating and researching every problem in the RevOps space. And really, that is where we landed on Pocus of the problem that it's really hard to unlock data for non-technical teams like sales, marketing, and customer success.
Yeah. How did you end up in the ops space? Was that just as like part of your consulting work you found that interesting, so you went in that direction, or like what was that
No, I had no
process?
idea what sales ops was, and I think it was extremely random. Actually, it wasn't even rev ops then; it was sales ops because rev ops,
Yeah.
I think, now is like a cool thing. Sales ops, it felt like it was kind of random. So in consulting, I just went for. I was looking at. I mean, I don't even know if you would call it a startup. It was Series C. I was looking for a company that I can go earlier stage and just learn and build as much as possible. I loved the mission of Dataminr. I loved that it was literally saving people's lives. I loved the team. It really, I just
Mhm.
went for the mission of the company and the team. And I was kind of like, I'll take whatever role. And I saw the words like analysis, strategy. I was like, I know how to do this
Oh
stuff.
wow, all
It
my
sounds
favorite
like it's
words.
something. Yeah. And then I joined and I was originally reporting to the VP of RevOps at the time. And then he quit 2 weeks later. So I was like, wow, I'm in this. I'm figuring it out. So
Wow.
all an
So it was,
accident.
yeah, it wasn't like, oh, I want to get into ops. It was just, how do I get a job at this company? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned I checked out your background, and you also worked at Monte Carlo for a little
Yeah.
bit, and you did have an option to go back full time, but you decided to go full time in Pocus instead. So tell us about that decision point. Like, how did you weigh out that decision? Like, was it even a risk at that point?
Yeah. So when I was in business school, so between first and second year, you get an internship. And I ended up interning for Bar Moses, who's the CEO of Monte Carlo. They were Series A at the time. I think they were like less than 20 people. So I absolutely loved that experience. I mean, it was a short time, but very transformational in how I learned my passion for early stage startups and did everything, did some sales ops stuff for her, but did a little bit of everything. And I was honored that she was like, we can craft a role of what this could look like full time. And I ended up kind of diving in more during after the internship at business school into what are the problems in RevOps that I think I can solve, and realizing more and more that I wanted to do this on my own. And I was honored that Bar ended up, angel investing in Pocus and her co-founder, and having her as kind of an advisor and following a lot of playbooks that Monte Carlo ran in the early days.
I love that story. I remember I had worked in the data space for a little bit, and as I was getting familiar with the industry, I learned about Monte Carlo and Bar Moses, and I was like, female CEO in a data company. This is at least I haven't seen that very frequently. So it's kind of cool to hear she ended up funding you. You're now building what I'm calling a data company with
Yeah.
Pocus. So full circle. And I know something you've mentioned in previous interviews is like how important that is to you.
Definitely. I mean, part of the reason I went to business school at all is I've always had this mission to just make sure that we can empower women for future generations in SaaS and in specifically data and in now sales, now that I'm more embedded into that and I was in sales ops. And I think that I originally thought I wanted to be a VC to invest in female founders. Good thing I went to business school because that showed me that I did not want to go into VC. I realized
Oh.
I had, yeah, so I did a bunch of internships in VC as well and thought that, and I actually started a fund for my
Mhm.
class. And what I learned is that I felt personally, based on my skill sets, where I can make the most difference for future generations of women is creating a company and building a culture that I wish I had years earlier, and creating the type of company that, can be an inspiration to other companies, and other women can say, I can do this. I can be a female founder, whether it's in SaaS, data, sales, whatever that is, because I really do think that working for bars, like the first female leader I've ever worked for, it gives you that kind of like, oh shit, like why can I not do this? Like I can do it.
Mhm.
It's just, there's a helpful kind of, I don't know what it is, just gut feeling when you see someone that looks like you doing it, a couple stages ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. And it's interesting because I guess in our situation, like brown man from low income family type, like immigrant family type of thing, when people, at least in my mind, when people start talking about DE and I, I'm like, I feel like we don't need to talk about that because it's kind of just us. I mean, it's very important, but maybe we don't have some of those biases that other companies are built on. And so, whereas other companies get to 1,000 employees and they're like, oh, we are predominantly hiring a certain profile and we need to change that. It's a bit harder to reverse that versus if you're thinking about that or that's kind of part of your mission from the start, it's just deeply embedded in the company culture.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, it's very important to me building Pocus, and I would say there are things that have come more kind of naturally in building the early team. Like we're now a team of 24 and 4 people are moms, which
Wow.
you do not see in early stage startups. And I think that's a function
Yeah.
of also like I'm a female founder, our early hire who's now head of product has 2 young kids and she's absolutely crushing it. And again, like you can see other people can do this. They can join an early stage startup and crush it and have 2 young kids. And it's that's one area of diversity, but it's also like diversity of a million other things. And being intentional about that up front just helps you make sure that you're getting it right from the beginning and scale appropriately.
Yeah. I love that. So let's talk about Pocus.
Yeah.
It's called product led sales platform.
Yeah.
So before we get into the actual product, what happened to product led growth? Where did product led sales come from? Like it seems like it's a spectrum, but tell us more about that whole
Yeah.
evolution.
The whole buzzword central. So,
Because we need
everyone
more
has a different,
acronyms.
yeah, SaaS loves acronyms. So, product led growth, it's, if you boil it down, it's products like Slack and Zoom and Dropbox. They have a product that can sell itself. It's self-serve. Users can get to value quickly. They don't need to talk to a human. What we've recognized over time is product led growth is incredible, but those companies also rely on salespeople to accelerate revenue. And it's when you put a sales motion on top of a product-led growth model, where you say, sellers are going to reach out, they're going to be consultative, they're going to help users get to more value, they're going to help drive the contract forward, the enterprise consolidation, whatever that looks like. So product-led sales is really using the self-serve users that come from product-led growth, tapping into that user base to drive revenue. I'll say, in my opinion, product-led sales is definitely a spectrum. I think every company, once you get big enough, should have a hybrid approach of some places you have more self-serve, or some places you have quicker time to value. Some motions are more top-down enterprise sales. Some are what we call warm outbounding to users that have already tried your product. So there's a huge spectrum of what this looks like. And all of this hybrid approach and what product-led sales is really just being more data-driven in the sales motion.
Yeah, it reminds me, I forgot who wrote the case study, but it was about Slack and how they probably hired a sales team too late. And
Yeah.
so maybe a lot of companies are learning from that mistake and they're like, we should probably implement an upmarket sales team sooner using the product data that we have. And so Pocus seems to be helping with that.
Yeah, and I always say to companies, it totally depends. Like it depends what's your user growth goal? What are your revenue goals? What is the business model? What is your ICP? Are you targeting small businesses, mid-market, upmarket? Like all of that then impacts the decision of when to hire sellers in a PLG motion. That is where Pocus helps. We help sellers at product-led growth companies use product usage data to inform who to go after, when, why, what messaging. And I do just think that it's every company is special and has a different approach and kind of methodology towards it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember at my last role, I had tried to bring in Pocus and the pushback was, wait, we can just build this on our own. I did my best to try to convince them like that's a horrible idea. But for the uninitiated, how do you describe kind of the types of problems that Pocus helps with and how it all works?
Yep. So the problem of building, I found this building internally myself at my last company. So what Pocus does is we'll really tactically combine data from the data warehouse around product usage. So think warehouses like Snowflake, Redshift, BigQuery, with CRM data like Salesforce and HubSpot, and bring it into one view so that sellers can see all that data, 360-degree view of their prospects and customers to figure out where should I spend my time and do prospecting and account research there. it is really hard to build this internally. It requires a project manager and folks from the data team, the sales ops team, the sales team, even the product and growth team. And what ends up happening is it ends up being a lot of people's full-time job to build this and then maintain this. And I think everyone's been in companies where if you're a seller or a marketer or a customer success manager, you're in a company and you're like, I really need this data point. And then you get put on a backlog, whether it's for RevOps or the data team to get access to that data point. That's what happens when you build internally. And then when you actually can purchase a software, all of this, you are really empowered to have all this data at your fingertips and make it really easy to see the data that you want and the workflows that you want. So I think when we were talking, we were really early in the Pocus journey. And it was like a new thing. It was like, what is this Pocus thing? Why don't I just build it using, Tableau or Looker or whatever that is? Yeah. And the reality is like that creating a new category, like if that is what you need to educate the audience. And luckily we're at a point now that we have more and more customers that are realizing the benefit that build versus buy conversation becomes easier. But it's kind of like now you would never be like, I'm going to build Tableau internally, or I'm going to build Salesforce internally. You would just be absolutely crazy to dedicate your engineering resources to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Even from the way you're describing it, I can think conceptually as an outsider how it might be built. I mean, as a PM from a previous life, I can probably start thinking about all the inputs, but how did you validate the product? Because that sounds like there's a lot of different things to consider. What did you do to figure out what exactly the product should look like?
Yeah, we worked with design partners for a year, and we got deep into those design partners' sales workflow, what data they need, where does it live, how are they joining those data sets, why doesn't it work to put Snowflake data in Salesforce, what are your mishaps, what do the objects look like, do you see the world as users, context, domains, accounts, as granular as you can imagine. I felt like I was a sales rep at their company or RevOps at their company. And we said, what are your biggest pain points? And before we coded anything, we would show them Figma mocks and say, this is what we're thinking, tear it apart, give us feedback. How would you interact with this? So before we put anything in, kicked off a sprint for engineers, we always had almost 100% certainty that what we built would be valuable for the end user. And so we spent a lot of time building with our design partners, building with our community before really kind of shipping a product that we weren't sure about. And we still take that philosophy today. We do not want to waste a single minute of an engineer's time. We only build when we are very certain that the end user needs this thing.
Yeah. Maybe tactically, what did that process look like? Were you just on calls all day, every day, talking to folks and showing mock-ups? What were your days like?
Oh yeah. Especially in the early days. We set up weekly calls with design partners. And what I mean by a design partner, it's a non-paying future customer, someone who needs this product, but part of it might not exist yet. Or maybe a beta customer, you can call it. And we would go to meetings. And we'd either have discovery calls of tell me about your day. What are you doing today? What are the pain points you ran into? How big of a pain point is this? Is this the top 1, 2, or 3 or more pain point that you need to solve today? And then we do product discovery as well. So that's more kind of customer discovery. And then we jump into product discovery of showing a Figma mock. How would you interact with this? What is confusing? What do you wish you saw? What do you think that we should get rid of that wouldn't be valuable? And continuing to iterate there and talking to people from sales reps, BDRs, AEs, sales managers, RevOps, data teams, really doing all of that work up front.
Weekly meetings, sharing all of those intimate details sounds like a lot of an investment from a design partner.
Yeah.
Why were they down to do that?
I know. That was my first reaction as a founder. The reality is that some of these early design partners, I will forever look back on and being foundational to building Pocus. And I'm so grateful for their time. And for them, it was, I want to be part of this moment that we're creating this category together. This is such a cool movement. Me looking back when HubSpot was created, I wish I was a design partner. That's a cool claim to fame. But they also needed this product. They said, if you build this, I will use this and bring it into my company. I'll also say a lot of them became early angel investors also in Pocus because they felt so committed after going through the design partner process.
And none of that was part of the plan, I imagine. You're just like, hey, we
No.
need help figuring out how to validate this product. But they're like,
Oh, I
here's all
cold
this money.
DM'd all of them on LinkedIn. And I was like, truly, all of them came from me cold DMing them on LinkedIn, being like, hey, we're building this. Do you have this problem? Would love to chat. And then it turned into weekly meetings.
Yeah, I love that. Did anything surprising come out of those interviews? Like, do any moments stand out where you're like, oh, didn't expect that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there was our idea for like unlocking data for sales has always been consistent. The ways to get there and do that, we've pivoted a million times. So if you look at the first Figma mocks, it's like comical what it looks like. Like it's just not what the product looks like at all. So there's a lot. I think for us, the biggest surprise was how many people care about this and get their hands on Pocus. Like we eventually are going to have to build for customer success and marketing and all these other use cases. We have a lot of stakeholders. And I think that was like starting with sales. You think it's just sales, but there's a difference between an ADE, a BDR, and a sales manager. And I knew that, but what they want is very, very, very different. And that's also different from rep ops. And that's also different actually between sales ops and CS ops and marketing ops. And so there's lots of stakeholders.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, personally, I wish I got to be in a role where I was using Pocus. I remember in my previous roles, I'd be pulling usage data from Amplitude, build a cohort, and then look at usage activity across everyone and then figure out who the power users are in that group and go email them on my own. And I was like,
exactly.
I wish this was easier.
Totally. And that process is what reps are doing. And so we save them 15 hours a week because instead of having Amplitude and Outreach and Salesforce and HubSpot and Google Sheet open, they can do it all in one place.
Yeah. So product-led sales is kind of like this new category. I think it came out of nowhere. When I heard about it, I rolled my eyes and I was like, another buzzword. I wonder if this is going to become a thing.
More acronyms.
More acronyms. And usually I don't recommend people go out and try to create a new category. Like I think people hear case studies about HubSpot creating inbound marketing and Drift creating like conversational marketing. And they're like, let's go create a new category. And you can waste a lot of money doing that. But tell us about that. Like, was that intentional? How did you go about doing that? Like, what was the process to make this catch on?
Yeah, it's funny. I probably at the time should have been more intentional about should we create a category or not. But my real thing was we have to create a category. Like there's no option. Like
it's probably good you weren't intentional.
Yeah. I can tell you what I was intentional about. What I was not intentional about was doing the research of should I create a category or not? Because to me, of doing this data-driven sale of using product usage data to accelerate revenue didn't exist. Because that is inherently different. The comp structure, how you structure a team, the incentives, the tooling, it just doesn't exist with like the Salesforce way of selling, of like traditional top-down, outbound, traditional compensation incentives. It's just it's a different way of selling. And so to me, it was like a no-brainer. Like we need to create a category. So I was not intentional about that decision. What I was intentional about was how to create the category. And had a very kind of knew that I wanted to build it with the community. And I said, like, this is not something that Pocus is going to build in a silo. This is something that we're going to build with other innovators that are in go-to-market functions. And that's why, I mean, one of the first things I did was create a Slack community that started at 20 people and now has like 2,500 people to say, we're going to build the category of product-led sales with you.
Tell us about that community, because whenever I hear community, it's another buzzword.
Oh yeah,
it's never really clear what people are doing. Like, I know, I personally know it's more than the Slack community, but tell us about that whole initiative that you ran.
Again, like I didn't do my research. I was like, I didn't know that people have such a strong feeling towards the word community, which is probably good because maybe I wouldn't have created one. What I saw, like I in my life have created a lot of different communities and what I think of community is like bringing together like-minded people that want to solve something. And so to me, it was like, I can't build product-led sales alone. My team of me and my co-founder at the time cannot build product-led sales alone. Like we need people like interacting and brainstorming and working through this together. So what started as a 20-person Slack group of just, we met monthly and had different like AMAs and conversations of like, what's top of mind for you? Let's talk about this topic. Let's talk about that topic. people quickly invited their friends and their managers and their peers. And then we turned conversations into content. Then we posted on LinkedIn and said, what do you guys think about this? We just learned from our community. And then there was a big feedback loop between what we learned in the community, what we built in our product, and what we shipped as content. And then that went back to the community. So it all ended up being one big feedback loop. And I agree, communities are buzzy, like it's noisy, it's people just promoting their own stuff. We actually took the approach, which is similar to product-led sales. Like we want to be very consultative and helpful. We don't want this to be spammy. So we've like kicked people out that are spammy. So it's really supposed to be like a helpful. And now what I think of as the community is everything from who's in the Slack channel, but really who's like building the product-led sales category with us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, before when I thought of Slack communities, I just think of empty like graveyards where people are just promoting their stuff. That's what a lot of communities are turned into. But the Pocus one is continuing to be alive and kicking.
Love it. And I have to say, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead.
I actually, one of the first 20 people that joined, I ended up forcing her to be our head of marketing, Sandy. I was like begging her to come join for a very long time. And I have to give a lot of props to her for standing up the community and the category of product-led sales with me.
Yeah. Sandy is baller. She's a hustler.
Yeah, she is.
I'll tell you what I love about this whole community play that you did. One of the rants I've done a lot with the way marketing has gone is folks have become a little bit data dependent rather than like using data to inform decisions. They're like, we can't do this thing until we have data, which I think is a very flawed approach. So in your case, what you were saying is we brought on folks who might actually use our product to talk about their pain points and talk about it amongst their peers who might also want to use our product. Turns out they all have similar pain points. Build trust, turn that into the content, and then scale that and share it. People react to it, and guess what? More people want to engage. That's literally what we tell people to do. But how do you add data to that to say like this is worth doing until you do it long enough to see the results come in? I'm not sure if you had any questions around that or if it was just like this just makes sense.
I think it's part of the Pocus personality and brand as well of like, we're never going to come out and tell you like, this is what product-led sales should look like. Like, this is the product, this is what you should use. Like, have a really prescriptive product that tells you, like, this is the exact PLS motion and journey and go. Like, that is just like, and that's frankly, like, how our competitors came to market. And then when we came to market, we said, you know, we want to build with you. We're going to build a flexible product that fits your workflow. We're going to build a community that informs us. On LinkedIn, I'm never going to share, like, this is the only way to do things. I'm going to say, this is my perspective. But I'm like really open to learning from you. And I think that's like how we built our brand and actually culture at Pocus. Like one of our values is shipperate, which means ship and iterate. So we are like, I mean, if you look at the early definitions of product-led sales, I'm like, whoa, it's changed a lot. Like if you look at our early blog posts, we're like, wow, like we've really evolved from here. No, I love it because it's like, it's showing like, we didn't like say like, this is what it is. It's like, oh, we got pushback from the community or from folks on LinkedIn and it helped inform our decision for both how we define this category and how we build our product. So I think it's a constant, you have to be data. Actually, Gaurav, on an AMA we did at our community, Gaurav, who's one of the founding team, is superhuman. Yesterday, he said, it's good to be data informed, but not data driven. So you want to use data to inform what your next step should be, but not like become so like paralyzed by being data driven that you can't make decisions.
Yeah, where you're just waiting for that one insight to give you 100% certainty to make a decision. I've had to deal with some of those challenges. So you've been doing Pocus for 2 years now?
Yep.
I imagine that's enough time to start seeing some patterns or trends arising. So what are you starting to see right now in the market?
So, yeah, I mean, it's 2 years, but it feels like 22 years. In a good way, we've done a lot in these past 2 years, lots of themes. So the biggest one is that product-led sales is evolving beyond just sales. So almost every single time that I that we bring on a new customer in sales, customer success will ask to get their hands on Pocus. And that is because, and same with marketing, because
Yeah.
those two teams also everyone needs access to data to do their job, right? And so a big theme for us has been kind of evolving how to think about evolving beyond just the traditional role for sales and how to use data to inform and really like every go-to-market function. So that's very top
Yeah.
of mind for me.
That's fascinating. And I mean, to open it up even further, I can imagine like UX designers who are doing user research, like we were also pulling amplitude reports and like
Yep.
combining with CRM data to figure out who we should be talking to. So this
Yeah.
maybe it just reverts back to product led growth.
Yeah. So I think it's, I mean, look out for, I can't spill anything just yet, but look out for updates for us in the next couple of weeks because we're going to have some more insights into this conversation. But what I will say is it's a blessing and a curse at a startup to have such a horizontal product
Yeah.
because everyone that sees our product sees a use case, like even the UX designers, like you just said.
Hmm.
But as a startup, we are a small team. We have to prioritize and focus. So it is the
Yeah.
constant kind of balance of how do you focus on the right things without getting too distracted, but also like making sure that 10 years from now, we've conquered every single one of those use cases.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that one of the things y'all did differently from competitors was you weren't super prescriptive about how to do product led sales. And it was really
Mm-hmm.
like a build with us, we want to learn type of approach. And I believe you had mentioned earlier, and I'm looking at your website now, that you launched playbooks, which to me feels like, oh, these are kind of recipes that maybe give you a starting point, but we'd love to learn more about your thinking behind the playbooks and what need you saw there.
Yep. So our approach is that the product should be as flexible as possible to fit anyone's needs. But our kind of strategic guidance, whether that's in a form of templated playbooks or advice or consulting, should be prescriptive. So we want the product to be able to do whatever it is, but you can use our advice. It's kind of like, think about Airtable. I love researching Airtable and Retool. Their products are super flexible, but you can get templates and advice and guidance on how to use their product to the best of its ability. So that's similar with us. So when I say that we're flexible, it's we have a flexible data model where you don't have to see the worlds in accounts and contacts like you do in Salesforce. You can see users, domains, workspaces, and teams. Or when you're thinking about a scoring model, it doesn't have to be these parameters. It's however you think about the score. And so for playbooks, how we think about a playbook is a signal and an action. So you can have a playbook that every time someone signs up and is really active in the product and invites five others, we recommend that you do research and email the champion with this message. And so you can either A, start from scratch and build those playbooks really easily in Pocus, or you can do an out of box one from Pocus that we see has been successful for many other companies.
Yeah. Is it, I'm trying to think of an analogy where maybe instead of trying to train a sales team on a new motion for sales, like, hey, here's some playbooks that I already built that maybe some other, based off how other companies are doing this. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, like one playbook that we see almost every single company use is there's an IT user that is engaged with the product. Therefore, you should probably reach out to them because they are probably looking for an enterprise-wide rollout and will care about things like SSO. So get ahead of that. Like there's certain playbooks that just every PLG company is running, and we can use our expertise and what we're seeing from our customers to then recommend on what playbooks to be running.
Yeah. I love that. And it's been so fun to just watch how much Pocus has grown over the last year and a half
Thank
from
you.
our first conversations where there wasn't actually a product yet to
No.
now there's actually a video demo on the homepage and it looks very like sleek as fuck. And I'm sure it's going to help so many companies like streamline a lot of their go-to-market efforts, like without going through all the headache and data wrangling that many of us had to go through in our roles.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And it's been so fun, like even chatting with you. It's like so much evolution of early folks in the community, like where they are now compared to earlier, and building product led sales with you also. It's been awesome.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears away from the actual like product that sells and the product and just ask you about like this whole process. To my understanding, this is your first time being a founder. I know you started a fund, but I think that's a little bit different.
Oh yeah.
What have you learned about yourself since becoming a founder and that whole journey?
Oh, I've had more growth in the past 2 years than probably ever in my life.
How
Um,
so?
yeah, so many things. One thing I'll call out is if you're venture backed and can afford it, or if you can afford it, get an executive coach. I think that has been an unlock for me to be able to, as a founder, you don't have a boss and you don't have someone kind of gut checking what decisions you make. And it's really helpful to talk through these decisions with someone else. Something I've learned a lot about is moving from executing only to empowering others to execute. So moving from just a player to a player coach and then eventually a player or coach, player to player, coach to coach. I am naturally someone that will get in the weeds and build. And so really still learning how to get out of the weeds and empower others to do it. And I have full trust in my leadership team to do it. That has kind of been like removing myself from in the weeds. And then I'd also say I've gotten much better at hiring, like running a process, what I should be looking for, what the interview loop looks like. So it's being a founder, like once you get past the like product market fit search, and it's a lot about just like grinding it out and hustle and like doing the work, but it's also a lot of like people stuff. Like it's a puzzle. Like how do I put the right people in the right place to unlock their magic to do the best work?
Yeah. How did you keep yourself accountable to get out of the weeds?
Hire really good people that will give you feedback. I have an incredible leadership team now that I've built incredible rapport with, and they will be like, Alexa, I've got this. Step away. You can give
Yeah.
me feedback. You can review the final version. Just let me do this. And then once that happens, I am out. Love the weeds. I'm like, great. You did it without me once. You can do it without me a bunch.
Yeah, I love it. I sometimes I have team members still come to me like kind of with tactical questions. And I'm like, let's see like a 50% solution and then let's chat versus right now I'm not sure where you are.
Yeah.
And that typically helps. And then on the side I might, if I have like 10 minutes free, I'll dig into it, but not tell them so that when if they come back to me, I like have a better answer. But
Yeah.
that's definitely been one of the harder parts because I'm so used to being a person building. But now it's like, hey, folks are joining us because they want to take on all that responsibility, and it'd be a shame if we didn't. How did you find a coach? I think that seems to be a nebulous thing for some folks.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I have a pretty good group of founders that I stay connected with. I have like a group of 40 founders from my Stanford class and like another group of 40 founders from first round portfolio companies that we have like a WhatsApp group. And I asked that group kind of who their coaches were, who they recommend, and then I interviewed six of them actually.
Oh, cool. How do you recommend folks build out that sort of network to maybe find a, I guess, peer group
Yeah.
or a coach?
Yeah, I'd say for the peer group, I realize I'm very spoiled that I have this. I don't think I don't really like really know what like, I did not know what like VC or startups or anything like to the extent of this is until getting to Stanford, and it really opened up doors for me and created a cohort. And then same like what once you raise your first round of funding, usually VC firms do a really good job of creating kind of cohorts of their portfolio companies. I'd say that like if that's not the stage you're at yet, there's plenty of resources. Like there's plenty of Slack communities and other ways to seek out like founders in SF, founders in Austin, whatever it is. Doing a little bit of research, digging, asking, who should I connect with, and building those communities that way.
Yeah. So maybe a little twist on what I asked about what you've learned about yourself since becoming a founder. Is there anything that you've learned that you're really freaking great at that wasn't obvious before?
Um, Maybe this goes against what I just said of stepping out the weeds, but I'm like very good at getting shit done. Like if
Is that surprising?
I didn't know to the level, like I can now have an idea on a Monday and I can see it through on a Friday. And so I think maybe the speed of getting stuff done. Like I am surprised by And it's my co-founder's help. We just like move at an insane pace that I didn't know was possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if I mean, I've had a similar realization for myself. Maybe it wasn't just speed, but capacity. Like,
Yeah.
if I look at all the different types of projects and things I'm juggling, maybe not all at once, but that are in my mind at any given time, I think about 5 years ago and ask if myself 5 years ago would have been able to do that. And the answer is no. But somehow I've been able to
Yeah. That's
continue
awesome.
like building out that capacity, right? Or at least like be able to context switch a lot better, which I feel like as a founder, that's most of our jobs.
Yes. Yes. And isn't it they're saying like, if you have something to do, give it to a busy person. Like the
Yeah.
more work you have, the somehow you magically find a way to insert in there and prioritize correctly.
Yeah. Um, Something you had mentioned before we chatted to one of the questionnaires I had to prepare for this podcast was I asked about what are non-work topics you want to talk about. I don't know where this if this will go and turn into anything, but you said no, it's pretty much Pocus, smiley face. And I respect that so much. I feel like there was maybe in the last couple of years or something, it kind of became taboo to say you liked working, but you're just like, yep, I like working. I'm building this company, and that's what I'm focused on. And I respect that so much.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I remember the question, like, what do you do outside of work? And to be honest, like, I think these past few years have looked different than what time before that has looked like and will change going forward. Like, there are things I love doing, like spending time with friends and family. And I mean, last weekend I went to a dance class with a friend and that type of stuff. But like, my life has truly become focus. And like, I'm not going to deny that. Like, I think that the past 2 years, like, I have given up some other things in life to do Pocus. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I think that's partially the topic and partially the team and people that I'm
Yeah.
surrounded by. So that, I mean, that's not how this is not, I will be honest, this is not sustainable for my future, but it is like what I like doing and how I'm choosing to run my life right now.
Yeah. Was it ever a challenge at some point to accept some of those trade-offs for you?
Oh yeah. Oh
How did you
yeah.
come to terms with that?
The trade-offs of like work versus other stuff.
Yeah. How did you come to terms with all of those things?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like realizing like what is your passion? What are you excited about? How would you feel fulfilled in life? Like I've made trade-offs to live in a different city than my friends and family, and that has led me to miss weddings and holidays and that type of stuff. And I
Oh,
think the reality is that like people might sugarcoat this and be like, there's a way as a founder to like also like live a healthy life and see your friends and family and work out every day and meditate. And it's just not true, is my opinion. And like, you just like, I need to keep going with like what, like this really fulfills me. It fills my tank. It's what I enjoy doing. And I want to make a difference for like future women CEO positions. So it's like the decision I've made and I've come to terms with it. And I don't think it's a forever thing though.
yeah. It sounds like really having conviction on, hey, what do I want right now, and what
Yeah.
do I need? How much time do I need to spend on it? So, all your friends and family back in was it Philly that you're from?
Yeah. More so in the
Or
East Coast. Yeah. Like New
okay,
York and Philly.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, yeah. Got it. Yeah, that
Good
must.
memory.
I yeah, did my research. um, yeah, I think one of the things that I've also accepted is I can't do everything. I used to be like, oh, I can do everything, but I mean, the last 3 weeks haven't gone to the gym once. And I'm like, maybe I can get a 30-minute workout at home with some kettlebells. Like that's as
Yes,
much as I can do because I have these sales pitches I got to send out. Like you just got to do
totally.
what you got to do, and you accept that this is temporary.
Totally. I used to be like, I gotta go to like Barry's boot camp 3 times a week. And now I'm like lucky if I do like a 10-minute online yoga 3 times a week. Like, and
Yeah,
I'm not recommending this. It's just like the
it's
reality
just
of
reality.
what right now is.
Yeah. How are you making space, if at all, to like
Yeah.
carve out that time for yourself and like I don't want to say self-care. I think that's overblown, but like sometimes you just got to have that space to yourself and not worry about work. Like how are you doing
Totally.
that?
I mean, I will say I have an incredible group of like more tighter knit folks that are my fiance, my family, my closer friends that I always prioritize. and just make sure that like I'm continuing to spend time with them. Or maybe it's like I put on headphones and go on an hour-long walk. Like you have to do that type of stuff, like, or you will honestly, or it'll impact your work. Like you won't be as creative or productive. So that's kind of, yeah, that I just make sure that that those close-knit people I have in my life, I'm always prioritizing.
Yeah, I used to do this thing. I'm long overdue for it, but I used to book a hotel for a weekend and just go
Ooh,
sit by myself and journal and just like
I
have
love
a night,
that.
like treat myself to a nice meal and like kind of splurge. And the first time I did it, my girlfriend was like, "Why? Can't you just do that at home?" I'm like, "No, I need to hear myself
Get
think
out.
and
Yeah,
just change my environment." And it's been probably one of the most impactful things I've ever done for myself.
totally.
And long walks too. I used to go
Yep.
on like 4 hour long walks when the weather's nice in Boston and just no music, no podcasts, just let
Yep.
myself think. And
Totally.
it's very cathartic.
100%. I definitely agree with the journaling and getting ideas onto paper. Like I do a quick journal every night, and then every month I do a monthly reflection, and it's very, very helpful.
Yeah. What do those monthly reflections look like? What questions are you asking yourself?
Yeah, I'm very and maybe I'm very systematic about this, but I actually choose three personal goals and three work goals every single month. I put it on a whiteboard that's above my desk. And then in my reflection, I like grade myself on how I hit each of those goals. And then I also look at like how much am I prioritizing health and work-life balance and like these XYZ things I was supposed to work on as a manager or an executor or a leader. And I think about like what did I do good that month? What could I have done better? And what do I want to improve for the following month?
So I don't want to spend too much time on this because I have my own system too,
I
but
want
I
to know
would
your
love.
system. What is your
So
system?
so I use Notion and I
Oh
used
yeah,
to
all
be
this is obviously a
I used
Notion.
yeah, I used to build all these complex relational tables and I'm like this is too much to maintain, but now I just have a daily thing where I have my checklist of and I don't hit all the items every day, but did I read today? Did I meditate? Did I work out? Did I invest in my relationships? Like just the basics that like habits I'm trying to do. And I probably get like two or three each day because as we said, can't get to everything. But if I get a certain amount for each one, I'll feel good.
Yep.
And each day rolls up to months. So for each month, I can see how many days I meditated, how many days I read, how many times I went to
I
the
love
gym.
that.
And I do a monthly. I used to do a monthly review, but it became a little bit too much for me because so much happens in a month. There's always so much to write, but that also rolls up to a yearly review, which I do at the end of every year. And similarly, I have like yearly goals. I have a 3 year rolling set of goals. So every
Yep.
year I plan the next 3 years, which kind of gets us thinking beyond just that upcoming year. And I've been doing this for like, it became super systematic the last 3 years, but I've been doing annual reviews since like 2012 or something. And it's always fun looking back at maybe how small some of my goals were and how much bigger they've gotten over time.
I love that. That is incredible. And I do a similar thing. I'll say though, at first it was very intimidating to start doing this. So my suggestion for like I got to the place where I do like 1 year goal, 3 year goal, 5 year goal, and then reflect. But I will say the way to start really, really, really small is I started with a one line a day journal. Where if you go on
Mhm.
Amazon, it's like $10. I think it's literally called one line a day journal. And you write one line a day and then it goes on for 5 years. So you can see where you were the year before, the year before, the year before at that day. And it's really cool to see the progress you've made.
Do you ever just look like as you're writing an entry, like, oh, I was doing this random thing 2 years ago? Like,
Oh, I'm like, I mean, this day last year I was fundraising and I'm just like thrilled that's not what I'm doing right now.
that's awesome. All right. So I know we're coming up on time. So we'll close
Yeah.
out with some rapid fire questions at the end here. So what's one opinion you have about business you think people would disagree with?
I think business in startups especially, experience actually doesn't really matter. It's more about intellectual curiosity and scrappiness. So I don't really care where people came from or the job they did. I care more about like can they figure things out and get it done. And so some of our hires might look random on LinkedIn. Like our head of product came from being a teacher and then working in ed tech, and she's
That's
like the best
awesome.
head of product I could ever imagine. So I think like grit's more important than have you been a PM at Google.
How do you screen for that in the recruiting process?
It's really hard. Written take homes. Every single role has a written take home. I think it really helps think about like structure of thought. How linear is it? Can they deal with ambiguity and create chaos from noise? And like how creative are they with their answers? Do they give many options rather than one? And yeah, I think we have three teachers randomly on the team, and I just think teachers are the best. For some,
Yeah.
they are just crush it. So, yes, that is my best bet and references. I think it's really hard to otherwise screen it in a typical interview.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had experience with a couple of teachers I've met in my professional career. And when they tell me about their experience as a teacher, I'm like, oh, this is a walk in the park for you. Like this is
Yeah,
actually easy.
it's so easy. Yeah, 100%.
What's one impactful piece of advice you've been given?
Um, I've been given a lot, but based on our chat today, one that I remember from a class at Stanford, Whitney Wolf, the CEO of Bumble, spoke to our class, and I remember her saying, like, as a CEO, just like always do things differently and set the standard that you wish existed before. And it kind of gave me permission to do that. Like, there's no rule book, there's no playbook to run as a founder or a CEO. Just like do things how you want them to be done and what you think the right answer is.
Yeah. Do you have an example of that? Like, how do you feel like you've done something differently?
So many things. Like, I mean, I remember my first hire was a head of marketing, and everyone told me that is, or first hire in the business team, they were like, why are you doing that? That's so stupid. Like, like that doesn't make sense. That's not what other companies do. And I'm like, well,
What
you
did
know
they
what? We're
recommend you
creating,
hire?
oh, marketers don't come till much later. If you look at if you look at the spectrum for like a business and how early, I mean, she was our fourth hire. If
Yeah.
you look at kind of benchmarks, I would say of like that's what VCs do and professionals. They'll say like based on my experience or based on my portfolios, or if you ask other people and what they did, like that is just not what comes first. And I said, we're building a community, a category, a content machine. Like this is what's coming first, and it 100% paid off. So I think it's just listening to your gut and not following the benchmarks from other companies.
Yeah. Were they all telling you to hire a sales leader or something?
No, I mean there's like various things like ops.
Okay. Mm.
There's ops, sales, customer success, whatever that roles are. Just like I'm
It
typically
wasn't
companies don't
marketing.
bring on its marketing as their fourth hire.
Yeah. I love that.
Engineers.
Yeah. What's one book you'd recommend more people read?
Based on our conversation today and just being kind of structured with goal setting and pragmatic in that sense, The Great CEO Within from Matt McCary, I think you pronounce his last name. He's actually a really, really, really famous exec coach. So if you can't get an exec coach right now, I would read that book and read all the stuff he's open sourced.
Yeah, I think he has a massive Google Doc where it's just like,
Yep.
here's everything I teach, like who I coach. Like
Yep.
here it is for free. I was like, is this fake or is this it's real?
No, it's
So
real. It
I
was
think you can
awesome.
Google it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
exactly.
All right, last question here. Where can people find you on the internet?
I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if you want to join our community, you can DM me on Slack. So I'd love to chat with you all there.
Yeah, everyone should join the club. All right, Alexa, it was a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you so much. This was really fun. I appreciate it.